So I'm delighted to welcome to this session Multimedia Messaging Markets Trends and Forecasts, a couple of guests from MEF members Mobilesquared. Firstly, Gavin Patterson, who's Chief Analyst at Mobilesquared, and Andy Jones, Principal Consultant thereof. So, gentlemen, you've managed to join me. Good morning. How's things?
Good morning.
And you're well, right. So we're going to have a discussion about what Dario has defined as the multimedia messaging market and what trends are emerging in this post-COVID-19 environment. Well, it's not post-COVID, is it? We're right in it.
We are a year on.
And how Mobilesquared are utilising their new message map research tool to help the industry understand with greater confidence to how this type of messaging will develop in the coming months and years based on a range of diverse indicators and market data. It's worth my pointing out here that Mobilesquared have partnered, I think, every RCS Roundtable and Method Connects event to date, and this really reflects our regard for their research and insights. You saw Nick Lane on day one with Dario, obviously sharing huge insights about the industry, but I trust that this will be the last plug today for Mobilesquared, and I will hope to redress any perceived impartiality imbalance by asking them some really difficult questions later on. So if you are watching and you'd like to ask either Gavin or Andy any really difficult questions about the multimedia messaging market, please put them on our Q&A and I will do my utmost to get to them. So I'm going to shut up now. Welcome both of you. Would you care to introduce yourselves, Gavin?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the post. Yeah, so I'm Gavin Patterson, Chief Analyst at Mobilesquared, mainly data wrangler. So working with a lot of the MEF members that you have and other people in the ecosystem, trying to understand exactly what everything they're doing means for the industry and hopefully bring some sense to it.
Great, that's great. And Andy, over to you.
Hi Ian, hi Gavin, morning everybody. My name's Andy Jones. As Ian said, I'm Principal Consultant at Mobilesquared. I'm kind of poacher term gamekeeper, so I was a Mobilesquared customer for a number of years, using forecasts and data books to, design solutions within the RCS environment. And I've since joining Mobilesquared, I've helped develop Message Map IQ, which we're going to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of this morning, which is a consolidated report of a complete market view, which gives you as an operator, as a brand, as a messaging provider, as an aggregator, decision-ready information in a single report. So hopefully we'll find some interesting questions as we go along.
Great. Right, someone's unmuted me. Right, so thanks, gentlemen. Let's jump straight in. I think we've got some slides, Andy, you're going to share to try and give us some context we can build our discussion around. So if you'd like to share that with us, and look, that works amazingly first time. Well done.
Okay, I can't see the slides up yet. Can you guys?
Okay, I can tell you they're up.
Good. Good. I'm going to flip my. There we go. I can flip my iPhone down now, so I'm not looking at myself twice.
Okay.
So yeah, this morning. This morning we're just going to run you through some of the methodology and the forecasts we used, and we're going to focus on a couple of countries and run you through a side-by-side comparison of how Message Map IQ data can be used to help create a business plan for development of our RCS, or looking at the impact of other messaging channels on the markets, and really kind of give you not really a deep dive but a view in terms of what's going on with the market. As we can see from the little map, I think Ian referred to them as gold countries. We're getting, penetration now across the globe, with a lot of countries now having RCS fully deployed in there. And what we're going to do is compare a couple of countries that have a full RCS deployment. I'll start by saying, it's been a year, I think, exactly a year to the day kind of since, lockdown really took hold of the market and really changed our lives permanently. And for the messaging industry, for the A2P SMS messaging industry, it's been a huge opportunity. And we've seen, obviously, customers that can't deal with their, customers turn to their brands for engagement in slightly different ways. And obviously, the ubiquity of SMS and A2P has significantly aided that. We've seen a number of sectors increase in activity, and unfortunately, sectors that were affected by like travel and tourism have seen decline in the use of messaging. But overall, the market significantly changed. So when we look at our forecasting, what we're basically looking at here is we forecast pre-COVID for an outturn, and since we've had the results from some of our interim surveys within COVID, we've seen that the marketplace has completely changed. So where in 2020 we were looking to outturn around, just under 18 billion, it's looking like when all the figures are in, it'll be 21.5 billion. So I will hasten to add that, all figures are subject to change. But anyway, let's kind of crack on.
Sorry, Andy, are you saying that's not a guarantee? Surely.
I'd like to say it's a guarantee. I think maybe it would be lowballing a little bit.
I've just got one question. Sorry, I'm going to be a devil's advocate here and just ask a few questions as they sort of occur to me. And your slide deck I found really interesting. But on that slide 1, I was a bit surprised that the retail and e-commerce hadn't seen a slightly bigger bump than we saw. Any observations there?
Yeah, can I say something?
Sure.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, good. Yeah. So the way that our sectors work, retail and e-commerce is in the world we live in now is probably two different sectors. So what we actually saw was a massive decline in the physical retail side, offset by an even larger increase in e-commerce. So overall, that led to that. You see a slight uptick on the green side, where it's going up. But basically, the two sectors, physical retail was destroyed, and we saw a massive increase in e-commerce.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Finance is obviously the lion's share there, and obviously we're all very much aware of the increase in use of SMS for two-factor authentication. Is there anything else that explains that? Perhaps more fundamental?
Well, so I think it's the finance sector is specifically kind of geared up to engaging with their customers in a mobile environment, more so than potentially the retail sector, which pushes people to originally visit stores, but now go online and interact through the web. Whereas finance, with the use of one-time passwords and two-factor authentication, knows the customer's mobile details. So actually, when there's a situation where they can't reach their customer through traditional methods, they've got a really quick route to be able to engage with their customers through A2P SMS messaging. Hence, you see, obviously they're far better positioned when an unexpected event like COVID happens.
Yeah.
And something else just occurred to me with that. So on the finance stuff, could it be partly attributable to the rise of the challenger banks? So obviously they're much more adept originally in a mobile environment, but does it force the big players to smarten up and improve their game?
Yeah, for sure, because a challenger bank is only online. Their only interaction is with an app on a mobile device, and their only way of validating their customer's identity is with their mobile number. So for many businesses, that needed to start to think of new ways of accepting e-commerce, as an example, so doing credit payments through online or through card payments, they turn to these quick challenger banks. So I think it's a lesson to the market to know your customer's mobile details so that you can engage with your customer. And counter side in the travel and hospitality market, while we've seen a decrease basically just because of the lack of travel going on, those sectors still do engage with their customers predominantly through a mobile engagement strategy. So they are sending messages and alerts around your plane arrival times, your hotel bookings. So as we start to see lockdown coming to an end and the new normal opening up to travel, and maybe a Mobile World Congress where people do travel, we'll start to see that significantly impacting on the travel and hospitality line in a positive way.
Okay. I'm sorry, just a little housekeeping. I think somebody is brushing against the microphone a little bit. If you could just watch for that, guys, that'd be really helpful. Thank you. So what have we got? We've got, oh, right. So, sorry, before that slide, Andy,
We've got 50 slides to go through, Ian.
You're like, actually, for the benefit of the audience, that's not true. That's Andy, I think, talking about what we normally do in telecoms, which is by PowerPoint, but that's not actually true. It's just one more thing on there, and this is just for my benefit, really. Can you explain the social media and chat bump to me? It's quite a sizable piece of that graph. Obviously, the one that's threatening finance, I suppose, from a growth perspective. I just wondered what was driving that.
So I think, in lockdown, people were restricted in terms of, social engagement, actually meeting people face to face, and they looked to social media as a way of engaging with, friends, colleagues, associates. And obviously, people were interested in welfare as well. So, if you wanted to check up on your family in a different country, then social media is a great way of just posting that photo to say we're all okay. But, within the social media sector, the way that the customer's identity is validated is with a mobile number, and there's an element of two-factor authentication, or within that, to validate that you actually are that person that you say you are, and you activate your account within social media. So obviously people turn to that as a way of engaging. They looked at different ways of communicating and collaborating. We couldn't do face-to-face, so collaboration within social media applications. So with things like the Facebook portal, people invested in that way as a way of getting social interaction. So obviously that market grew significantly, from that engagement point of view. I must hasten to add these figures are representative of phase one of lockdown, so the impact to the market.
Okay, right, guys, I've just been told we've got 16 minutes left to do 18 slides, not 50. So I've been told very firmly to shut up and not ask any questions. I can't promise that, but please, fire away.
Okay, so I kind of just run through the framework of Message Map IQ, and then maybe we can slip quickly through some of the other slides. But really what we do at Mobilesquared is we take a complete view of the market. So we look at the population, we look at the gender and age of people, we look at the mobile operators supporting that community. And what we're trying to get down to is an identity of unique mobile subscribers, because these unique mobile subscribers are customers that brands and enterprises want to engage with. The customer may have 2 or 3 mobile connections, but there's always one which is your personal one, which you use for your banking and for your social media applications. The other thing we look to do, rather than just focus on predominantly the native channels, so like the SMS, RCS and iMessage channels, is we broaden our view out to look at all of the OTT services. So we look at the entire messaging market, and we look at how that can impact certain verticals or certain demographics, or certainly what we'd like to do is we'd like to break that down into a business market, into verticals and use cases. So for Message Map IQ, we analyze 16 market verticals, and we look at 6 kind of common use cases across A2P and P2A, which is alerts, customer service or customer care, marketing, promotions, path to purchase, reminders and security. And from that, what we try and do is we try and figure out what each of the brands are doing within each of the use cases. What are the benefits that multimedia or business messaging, rich business messaging brings to that? And then by using that data, we can analyze what the opportunity in the market looks like, and we can also model some scenarios in terms of what the uptake of rich business messaging or RCS or WhatsApp would look like, and which sectors really like different channels and delivers what they need to deliver to their customers. And the way that we do is we bundle this view into a complete report that gives you a snapshot of the market, and also then gives you some scenario-based forecasts, like the what ifs. So what if we move to conversational commerce? What would the likely impact of that be? So that's the overall kind of messaging view that Message Map IQ delivers.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll work with Gavin. We'll just run through a tale of 2 countries.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just say one thing. I think when we initially spoke, guys, about this session, I really wanted something to try and tie into our two RCS roundtables, which are happening today for Europe and Latin America. You were kind enough to suggest the Mexican and Spanish markets as real areas of interest.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've side by side Mexico to Spain, just to give a market view of the type of data that we analyse within producing our data books and our message map IQ stuff, and also just give a different perspective in terms of what those countries actually look like.
Yeah. So, that was a gap for me there, Andy, was it?
Yeah, sorry, Gavin.
Sorry, I missed my cue. Obviously we've seen some encouraging uptake and numbers, particularly around RCS, I should say, in both of those countries. Can you tell us what you've sort of found out from your deep dive?
Yeah, so with the roundtables coming up later, so we thought we'd look at Mexico and Spain, because going back to that map that Andy showed at the beginning, where we had the green market, the green gold markets. I mean, those markets are where A to P is now actually sort of up and running. So not on the P to P side. So Mexico and Spain, both very interesting. I mean, you can see sort of we build down here from the population to how many mobile subscriptions around the market. These figures are from the regulator, so the discounting, IoT, data owning, all that kind of thing. I think the Mexican numbers are up to the end of September. From that, we look at the uniques in the market, because we want to, as best we can, deal with individuals as opposed to multiple subscriptions on a phone. And there we can see the people without a phone. Now, as far as RCS is concerned, obviously, I mean, it's all smartphone based. So if we, I can't see what's going on there, but maybe you can. So smartphones in the Spanish market you have there, and non-smartphones, smartphones. Andy, you can see this better than me. So.
Yeah, sorry. Let me pick up, Gav, because I know you're struggling from a technology point of view. So the first thing we identifies the population. Obviously, the total mobile subscription within there, often more than the population. And what we want to do is identify a unique mobile user. So all of the data that we look at is based on a unique mobile user profile. We look at the people that have smartphones, and we also look at the people that have non-smartphones, because for the people that have got non-smartphones, which in both markets is around 14%, we still need to engage them with the A2P SMS, and that's the only route to do that. We also look at the demographic by age, and we can do that by handset type. So we know the type of handsets and the likelihood of the customer being on an Apple or an Android device. Then what we do is we break that down in more granular detail, and I won't go through this in the interest of time in too much detail, but we look at the profile of the operator. So in Mexico, there's Telcel, that's a dominant market operator in the market. So any decisions they make in terms of messaging influence the Mexican market per se, and the operators there. Spain, on the other degree, though, slightly smaller population, but the operator market split slightly differently, and each of the operators has adopted a different strategy. So we've got obviously Telefonica and Vodafone with their own kind of network deployments, and we have Orange working with Google. And then we also start to look at, the population of device type by operating system. So in both markets, kind of around the kind of 65 to 70% is Android. So it's a predominant Android market. It's a great playground for RCS. But again, we must not forget about the Apple users that sit here in both markets, because just like the non-smartphones, the only way that we can engage with these guys right now is with iMessage and looking at Apple Business Chat. What we do then is take an entire view of the country. So, SMS being ubiquitous, how many of that population can we reach with an SMS message, an A2P or P2P message? And in both countries, it's around kind of 84, 86%. We then look at the messaging channels, the dominant messaging channels that exist within country. Now in Spain and Mexico, they are the traditional kind of WhatsApp, Facebooks. But we can also, from our analytics, look at WeChat, Line, Viber, Telegraph, and say, what's the market share? So when we look at engaging with the multimedia messaging strategy, we know that if we were to choose WhatsApp as our platform, that we'd be able to reach 55% of the population. And what's quite nice to see in both countries now, and certainly in Spain, that RCS has overtaken the penetration of Facebook Messenger. So, gone really the arguments that, we don't have as much penetration as other than some of the other social apps. RCS is definitely there and active and there to stay. So,
that's quite a significant jump from where we were this time last year, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And, that's because of the good work that the Spanish and Mexican operators have done in terms of promoting and dealing with RCS. But the other thing here, which is important, is that people quite often say, well, until we get a certain amount of penetration in the market, it's not worth investing in that. And actually, that's not the case, because applications like Instagram and Twitter have far less penetration in certain markets, and they still are able to drive a business model within that engagement with their customers. The other quick one, and I'll kind of skip over this if I can quite quickly, is what we saw last year is we saw Google really promoting the RCS market and launching guest cloud services in the country. And you kind of wonder, okay, well, is that beneficial? Does that only limit customers to Google messaging services? But if we look at the Mexican and Spanish market, the penetration of Google messaging services within the Android marketplace in Mexico is 45%, and in Spain just under 50%. So from a Google Guest Cloud launch perspective, these are the guys that they can directly influence by provisioning their service. If we want to address the whole of the market, in per se, we do need to have this blend of downloadable applications and native applications. We do require the operators to invest in RCS and map technology within the core. And certainly, from a native perspective, with that, native basically means that the operator can control the messaging platform that exists on. So there's a certain number of Samsung phones that can't be influenced without the download of an application. So, good job, really shows the kind of market opportunity. And if you looked at this, for various different countries, those metrics would change significantly. The other really interesting thing is we start to look at the businesses. So we look at enterprise businesses, we look at the kind of small and medium enterprises, and also the micro businesses in terms of penetration of business messaging, A2P business messaging in those sectors. And obviously there are loads of micro businesses in both companies, but actually the penetration of A2P SMS within the micro business market is very small, which means that there's still a huge opportunity for these guys to embrace business messaging or multimedia messaging, and actually, that market is 92% of people that we could look to go after. Similarly, in the enterprise market,
that was a real standout slide for me. That's a huge market, and even when you look at the smaller companies, there's still potentially a huge amount of growth there, isn't there?
Yes, and I suppose what you need to realise is that within the large enterprise space, around 31% of businesses are using A2P as a way of engaging with their customers or mobile messaging. There's still this huge market here, so still larger market to be addressed. But there are also in these markets, Ian, people that have no requirements. They're B2B really, so the immediate benefits of going to A2P style engagement don't really stand up. But the market opportunities.
I would question that, and I bet there's an F member out there who sees a business opportunity there. But please continue.
I say in terms of business opportunity, from a B2B perspective, there's still an opportunity to use multimedia messaging as a way of just communicating with employees. But in the kind of business to consumer market, when there's a brand trying to reach lots of customers, there's still plenty of growth that we can be achieved in there. Last point is obviously in the micro market, things like WhatsApp, non-API WhatsApp for business, does service that market really well. So these guys can use WhatsApp to communicate with their customers and run their business without paying any additional money and get a free messaging service. So it's an area which requires a little bit of investigation. The other thing,
sorry to interrupt, we've got about 4 and a bit minutes left. I have just got one question from the floor, and we haven't had a huge amount, so I'd quite like to ask it. It's from Mikhail Klitz. Question is, why is the percentage for RCS subscribers so low for Mexico, only 15%? If Google by Android messages is providing RCS solution there, with so many Android handsets, it should be much higher. Have you got an answer for that?
Yeah, it's turn of active RCS people that are using P2P. So that's the figure at the moment. And like I say, that those figures are adjusted to, I think Gavin said September. So that market is growing significantly.
Great. Okay, please continue. We've got about 3 minutes left, I think.
Okay, so I'm not going to get into the crux of conversational commerce. So I'll kind of just finish off on this. The other thing we look at is obviously, revenue by market vertical. So we break down and we look at the sectors, that are using A2P SMS at the moment, and we can attribute the revenue to that. And obviously, what we get down to from a unique mobile user is we can work out the current, revenue being generated from an A2P SMS point of view, which, as you can see, between Mexico and Spain is vastly different. So obviously, in Spain, A2P being used probably more, and obviously maybe at a higher premium. So we can start to build the market profile out like that.
Yeah. Guys, let's if we could share this slide, and then we'll do a bit of a wrap up, because I would like to get both of your views on sort of where the market is and where we need to go next before we jump. Who'd have thought 45 minutes would fly past so quickly?
So it does, yeah, indeed. So I'll just finish and I'll do a quick whistle stop tour of this slide, and then we'll make the deck available. So when we look at each of the individual market sectors, we map them against use cases. And I think, as you were talking really, Ian, we talk about finance and what's the predominant use case within finance. And the predominant use case is two-factor authentication and A2P. There's an element of alert and there's an element of customer services, but predominantly in the A2P SMS market, it's being used for delivering that, that 6-digit passcode. So from a market perspective, actually, SMS is a brilliant platform for doing that because it provides ubiquity. But for other sectors which are more customer services orientated, where they want to engage in conversational commerce, SMS is very limiting. So what we've done here, and I'll leave with this last slide here, is if you look at the marketplace from an alerts perspective and also from a security point of view, then A2P SMS predominantly delivers that capability very well. If you want to add on some customer care or some path to purchase, then you can tag that on, and that will drive some incremental growth. But the fundamental point of security and alerts is to get one piece of information to the customer. Whereas within customer services, marketing and promotions, path to purchase and reminders, rich business messaging or multimedia messaging drives significant growth and engagement. It drives customer satisfaction, it drives more messages, and it increases the return that the brand gets for their investment. So actually what the green sectors are showing is that within each of those markets, the predominantly rich business messaging or multimedia messaging brings a huge amount of opportunity to that, and currently the market's servicing those with an A2P SMS. So actually, this opportunity to move to conversational commerce is huge. And right. On that note, I'll stop.
Thank you, Andy. And I'm really sorry I thought we'd have huge amounts of time to talk about this stuff, but it really has flown past. So I'm sorry we've not had time to expand a bit more on this. Perhaps next time we'll do an hour and a half session. You'd be up for that? I certainly would. It's been really great, and the Message Map IQ product is terrific. We're a great supporter of it, and we wish you well with it. We've got some terrific sessions coming up later today, but guys, the slide deck, will you make that available from your virtual booth so people can go in and download it from there? Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. I'll make the presentation available immediately after this, Ian.
Or if you send it to me, if you've got any problems, I'll do that. Actually, I think we'll have to do that. But great. So we've got. Sorry, it just remains for me to thank you very much, guys, for your inputs today. I hope you've enjoyed this event. We've had a great time, a tiring time, but it's been really successful. And thank you very much for helping us out on it. Much appreciated.
Absolute pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Great, and I'll speak to you very soon. So upcoming, we've got Dario, I think, introducing our main sponsor, Mavenir, and their session, which is called RCS Vendors Renew Efforts to Deliver a Truly Interconnected Experience. So this is sort of turning into RCS Day. Again, thanks to my guests, Gavin, Patterson and Andy Jones from Mobilesquared. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I'll see you again very shortly. Thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys.